status report.
Status report? What? There's something you need to see, Chief. We lost everything.
I need a weapon.
Wait, what? What are you gonna do?
Improvise.
You have one bullet against an entire army. What can you do on your own?
It's enough.
So I see. I don't believe it. You made it.
The Banished are planning to fire this ring. We need to make sure they don't.
Humans, I'll call you their savior. Covenant, demon, the banished, prey. The banished will hunt you down, pursue you wherever you run. It occurs to me that we have not been introduced. I, of course, know the huge Spartan. Your legend, the fear you inspire is admirable. I hope you stir in the hearts of your kind. I am Echelon, War Chief of the Banished. This is my world now. And you have little time remaining.
But this wasn't the mission.
The missions change. They always do.
Halo, Halo, Sacred Icon viewers, and welcome to the official Sacred Icon Halo Infinite spoiler-free video review. Today we're going to break down the topic into 4 different sections. We are going to talk about the sound, we're going to talk about the graphics and art design, we're going to talk about the gameplay, and lastly, story, and then we will get to our overall score of the game.
Got it. Only way with the Razorback.
Firing! More Banished incoming.
Josh, I think the sound design and the music for this game is really good. Music in particular does a great job of harkening back to classic Halo. It feels more on point with the original trilogy than the prior 2, 3, 4, 3 soundtracks. And I mean, just the sound and the punchiness of the game overall, whether it be weapons, explosions. I don't think I really have any complaints here, Josh. What are your thoughts?
I really love the soundtrack. I'm happy that it sounds close to Bungie. It sounds like it's less trying to imitate what Marty and Michael did, but it's trying to be its own thing at the same time. It's trying to imitate that, but also be its own thing. And I like that it has its own identity with it. I do wish, though, there are times I feel like the music should have really been picking up more.
I agree.
Should have been kind of more bumping at certain points and stuff like that. I would have figured certain aspects would have kicked in, but I don't really hold it against them because this is a different kind of Halo, you know, and it's got to be different trying to figure out how to trigger those types of moments and stuff like that. But it does feel like, music-wise, that while I love the drums that are there, I love the kind of, you know, Gregorian chants and stuff like that, I do wish they would have been a bit more emphasis on them. They would have been a bit more louder. They would have hit more. But I still love what's there, and I hope they get the same composers back for whatever possible DLC they may do down the line, because I feel like they can only improve from here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the soundtrack's really good. I don't really have complaints about it. I mean, in a sense, it seems safe. I feel like it feels safe because it feels very, like, classic Halo and reminiscent of those themes, but it doesn't seem like there's too many big risks taken with it. You know, I think of, like, Halo 4's soundtrack, and to me, that was such a risky soundtrack, but it did so many new things and was so interesting that it kind of made that a special soundtrack in a way that this one isn't. But ultimately, it's the most Halo feeling soundtrack we've had since the Bungie era, even more so than like Reach or ODST for that matter, that had very different soundtracks. So I just think I think it's very good. I really like it. I don't really have any complaints with it. I think the main thing just is that there's no moments in the campaign where it just kind of blows up and you're like, da 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 da, and you're just like, whoa, this is crazy. There's nothing like that. It's more subtle. But you're right. It's a different type of game. So I think overall, I mean, this is a good aspect of the game.
It does feel like, I mean, there are certain moments, although they're kind of more minute. There are certain moments where the tracks does kick in, like when you're in the final like run, kind of near before the final like boss battle and stuff like that. That kicks in right when like the explosions are going off in the opening level. The music kicks in there and stuff like that. But it is definitely more difficult. A couple of my favorites, though, are Through the Trees, which they previewed early on. I thought that was super good. There's a couple others like, God, what's the name of it? Well, I'm forgetting the name of it, but there's a lot of good ones in this. Like Foundations, there's a lot of tracks that feel like
really good.
Yeah, so good. It's got some Forerunner vibes to it. I do agree. They feel safe. But there's also a couple in there that do feel kind of different, and I love that. I do feel like there's a good balance in there and stuff like that. It's sequenced. That's the other track I was thinking of. That one freaking slaps, dude. The last like minute of it, I get so amped and stuff. But I don't know. Great soundtrack to listen to. Lets me. I've been listening to it at work, and definitely lets me escape to Delta or to Zeta Halo. What was it? Delta Halo to Zeta Halo. It's been great. And as for the sound design itself in the game, really happy with it. I feel like this is some of the best sound design I've heard in a game in a long time.
The feeling you get when you use the grappling hook.
Oh, that feeling is amazing. Can't get enough of it. The sound, all down to even the footsteps on the ground, to when you're collecting Spartan cores, you're planting power seeds.
To Eshrum's asthma.
Yes, to Eshrum's asthma. Yes. What do you think, though, about the sound design? No,
I think ultimately sound design and the music, the score, I think it's all what it needed to be. It's probably the best it's been since Halo 3. In a sense, I mean, of course, I do hold the ODST soundtrack in high regards, but ODST didn't sound Halo in the same way that we're used to.
Right.
So, yeah, I'd say ultimately at the end of the day, I'm extremely pleased with this portion of the game.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, Josh, what's so interesting about this portion of the game is this is the most heavily criticized part of the game, even, a year and a half before it came out with the 2020 reveal. People just didn't like how the game looked graphically. They thought that it looked very underwhelming. It looked flat. The lighting and shadows weren't that great. There was pop-in. But this extra year... It's a rough time. Yeah, but this extra year that they've had, they really put in the effort, and it shows because... This game looks beautiful, and not only does it look beautiful on like a Series X or a PC, it looks really good on even an original Xbox One. I would say it's fair to say it's not the most graphically impressive game I've ever played, but the wonderful blending of art designs that harken back to like the Bungie era, and them perfectly picking the right designs for each enemy class and each type of thing, just paints quite possibly the best art design the series has seen yet. It's a culmination of things, and combined with that art design with the graphics, and I really don't think you can ask for much more here. I mean, like, it doesn't feel like it needs to be graphically improved in any way, but once again, it isn't the most beautiful game I've seen, but it's all I need for Halo. That's kind of where I stand.
I'm actually in the same boat. I feel the same way. I think visually it's quite stunning, to be frank, but it's also not the most visually stunning game that I've ever seen. But like you, I don't need it to be. I'm actually just really happy and already blown away where it's at. And in retrospect, I'm pretty thankful that I got to see the original gameplay demo, to see how far it's come, to better appreciate what we have now. Everything from just the sun filtering through the trees and stuff like that, seeing birds and random critters as I'm going about, the visual fidelity just in the distance and stuff like that, draw distance. Everything has so much detail to it. I mean, I was going up and running and looking at like bark on trees and looking at moss and foliage, looking at the water. Everything is very detailed. A lot of attention and care could have easily been ignored because of how open this game is compared to other Halos, but everything is giving a touch of detail and some glitter and glimmer and stuff like that. It's quite impressive in of itself. It doesn't need to be anything more than what it is, and it's amazing, so that's enough for me.
Yeah, I think it certainly helps that we saw what it looked like in 2020, and with such a big improvement, I think it's hard for anyone now to really complain. And I think what really matters here in the graphics and art design portion is that art design. I'm someone who was more accepting of 4 and 5's art design, but they were very out there compared to what we knew of traditional Halo.
Right.
And with Halo Infinite, it really brings it back in a way that just is paying homage to all 20 years of Halo, but staying very classic. So between the graphics getting improved and the art design finding the right place, overall, I would say I'm extremely impressed with what we got now.
I do have to say too, I completely agree, but also the Forerunner aesthetics in this,
it's up there.
It's like the best it's ever been for me. It's a hot take. It's early on, but I mean, it's definitely. I feel like it definitely deserves to be in the top tier of Halo Forerunner designs. I mean, it just has so much detail. It's exactly what I want. Like if they were to ever remake one of the older Halo games that used Forerunner aesthetics, I'd want them to go with this palette because it just looks so stunning.
Oh, it looks like if you took Halo 3's Forerunner art style graphically and you gave it 14 years of advancement. That's where we're at now.
Yep, I absolutely agree.
So it's wonderful. Ultimately, guys, I mean, this is just a great component of the game, everything we wanted, and we're just completely satisfied. Josh, I don't think it's an overstatement to say that the gameplay in Halo Infinite is quite possibly objectively the best it's ever been in the entire franchise. Between bringing over the improvements from Halo 5's gameplay, the smoothness, the clamber, the crouch slide, aim down sights with the left trigger, but still
which
feeling very
for granted now.
Very Halo, yeah. Between the the improvements from their learnings and where Halo 5, Halo 5 brought in those things. Halo 4 kind of lacked it, but Halo 5 took it in this great step in the right direction. But then you had, Halo 5 also incorporated all those abilities and things people didn't want so much. So for them to bring it back, keep the smoothness and keep the improvements of the gameplay from 5, but then to also keep it simple without the abilities, and to bring in the grappling hook effectively and have armor abilities return like they were in Halo 3, but in a little bit of a different way. I feel like they nailed it here, and I feel like it's so smooth and so satisfying to play at 60 or 120 frames that it's really hard to go back to any older Halo and just feel the difference. It feels like it's all outdated now more than ever. 5's probably the closest to feeling up to date, but ultimately you're looking to grapple hook, you're looking to move around the map the way you do with this. One of my favorite things to do is to grapple something, and as I land, crouch and slide. And that's just so satisfying and so much fun. So I would say of all of these topics we're talking about in this review, I would say the one that sticks out the most as the best component of the game over everything is the gameplay.
Absolutely. The gameplay has a nice sense of progression with it too, in terms of how you can level up Chief, unlock new abilities, like you said. It's not like Halo 3's in the sense of this stuff was just sort of there as if it's always been there, but it's there because it's a new game. This one gives you narrative reasons as to why you're getting the threat sensor and the thrust and so on and so forth, and it makes the moments you get them really fun to kind of use them and get to see, almost how the Spartans previously what they did and what they kind of like went with and stuff like that. Because Chief starts out with the grapple shot, whereas these ones started, they had the thruster and stuff like that. It's almost like their own little power, even though they can all have them and stuff. That's pretty cool. I love how each one feels. The drop wall is probably my least used and least favorite, but I have seen other people use it very effectively, and I'll probably look to use that a ton on my legendary playthrough when I go through that. In terms of moment-to-moment gameplay, gunplay, stuff like that, I think it's the best it's ever been. The most replayable easily for me, simply because it feels very easy to pick up, get adjusted to, but feel like a god with when I'm using it. I really do feel powerful. Shooting a grunt, and then as a brute's charging at me, grapple shotting onto a tree and slingshotting my way around so that I'm flanking him, or at least able to flank that very brute and gun him down and stuff like that. Things like getting into the Warthogs, piling in with Marines at the FOB bases, rescuing them. I did a stream recently, had this one female Marine with me, and had her trying to keep her alive as much as possible, and had a lot of fun with that as she was using the Ravager weapon and actually killing brutes and elites and stuff like that. And that was really rewarding to see, and it created that moment where I'm trying to keep this Marine alive, and I thought, I have not felt this way since Halo 3, where I was really fighting to keep these Marines. I'd get into these like attachments with these characters that actually meant nothing really, but it helped create that immersive story where these people and moments mattered. So I'm really grateful for that. All the guns feel great. All the guns feel fluid. How do you feel about the weapons?
I mean, the weapons are some of the best they felt in the game. I mean, there's some that are a little less, they're a little more underwhelming, especially in the multiplayer side. Like if you're talking about the pulse carbine or the plasma pistol, they don't feel as exciting to use, but they definitely feel more so in the campaign, which is interesting. But I was going to say the point that I really want to drive home is how much the gameplay is what makes this game, specifically the campaign, work properly, what makes it function the way it does. Because when it comes down to Halo going in this direction of a semi-open world, at the end of the day, you do have side tasks that are similar to other games you've played, where you're going to bases, you're clearing out enemies, you're saving Marines, or in another game it might be you're saving assassins, or you're saving hostages, or whatever. So it's very similar to other games in that way that people might have feared, but what cannot be stressed enough is that the gameplay is so smooth, and the gameplay loop, that 30 seconds of fun, is so fun and exciting that them adding these additional things into the open world make the game better. It makes the game awesome. It's a positive. It's not a negative that it's semi-open world. It's a positive because, typically when you play a Halo game, you play a campaign, you get to a section of a mission that's just so much fun, whether it's the Covenant in Halo 3 or the Silent Cartographer in Halo Combat Evolved. You get to this really cool encounter, it's a blast, you move on. Well, the great thing about Infinite is it's those encounters just repeated over and over and over again. Even if you're not in the campaign like main missions, where you also get those encounters just traveling between different areas. You're getting those encounters at FOB bases, you're getting them with special takeout targets, or you're maybe just climbing up a mountainside and you come upon a little tiny encampment with a few brutes and a grunt, and it always plays out just as exciting and just as fun.
I agree. There's definitely moments of respite in that game when you're traveling where you can just take in Zeta Halo, enjoy the visuals, enjoy the surrounding area you're in, go find secrets, skulls, whatever you want to do. But then you do have those moment-to-moment encounters in between actual like bases and FOBs and stuff like that you got to take over that really make it pretty rewarding. It never feels dry, it never feels lacking or empty. It always feels like there's something to do that's never far away, right? I mean,
no, absolutely. I would say if we were scoring these sections individually, I would score the gameplay the highest. The gameplay is something that I can't see it being improved anyway. I would say this is the most satisfying aspect of the game.
Very much.
Okay, Josh, this is one of the most controversial sections of the review. I mean, if not the most, because there's just a lot to say here. I'm not sure how long we'll go on this, but we're going to keep it spoiler-free.
It's a lot to unpack.
It won't be as long as if we were doing spoilers. But man, honestly, this game had an uphill battle coming in, because what it had to do was bring us back from the extremely poor narrative of Halo 5 in a way that made sense and made us on board for the continuation of the series, and didn't feel like it was disrespecting Halo 5. And if you're looking at it from that aspect, I would say, wow, they knocked it out of the park. They did something Herculean, something that feels like it was impossible. They managed to climb us out of that narrative pit that was Halo 5 and make us interested again. And they did it in a way that makes sense, and they did it in a way that's mostly satisfying. So if that's the aspect of the story that we're talking about, 10 out of 10 for fixing the issues and getting us back on board. But ultimately, that's not the only thing about the story. The story itself has to service a purpose as a beginning, middle, and an end, and it has to satisfy as its own contained story, whether you've played the prior games or you're coming in on this one. And this is something that I'm glad we've had more time to think on before reviewing, because I think I kind of went on this roller coaster ride of, like, I saw some spoilers before the game came out, and I thought I wasn't too sure about the story. And then I played the game and experienced it on launch day and beat it, and I thought, wow, that story was so good. And as time's gone on and I've replayed the game and I've thought about aspects of the story and thought about what it tried to do, I realized that, yeah, the story is good. That's ultimately true, but it's not maybe as good as I thought it was while caught up in the hype. A couple of issues I have. One, a major component of this campaign is trying to fix the mistakes of the prior campaign. And ultimately, as good as Halo Infinite is, Halo Infinite could have been a better game if it didn't have to deal with the awful story from Halo 5. And if you're a fan of Sacred Icon and you've listened to us for a while, you know that we do not like to crap on games. We like to talk about the positives, and we've talked about how much we love Halo 5, even Halo 5 missions and story elements of the campaign, how much we like them. But the truth of the matter at the end of the day is that Halo 5, it just made so many mistakes in its storytelling, and it dropped the ball so many places that there's so much heavy lifting Infinite has to do to get us back on track here, that I feel like it hurts Infinite's own concealed story itself. We still have, without going into spoilers, we still have things that happened in 5 really counting in Halo Infinite in ways you maybe didn't want them to count. Maybe you had hoped that things would go differently, but they kind of stuck to the plan from 5, which is also a positive, because there's so many people out there who were worried that they'd sweep what happened in 5 under the rug and not address it or retcon it, and that doesn't happen here. They stick to their guns and they address it and they go forward with it, but ultimately it just leads to a story that is trying to do too many things at once. It's trying to finish
The fight?
It's trying to resolve what happened in 5 off screen before we start the game, and then let us know as we play Infinite kind of what happened. It's almost like there was a Halo between 5 and Infinite that it's telling us as we play the game, and we don't get to experience that in the game. But then it's also trying to set up this completely new direction for Halo, and then by the time you get to the end of this narrative, what it feels like is that this was an onboarding campaign. It feels like the campaign got Halo 5's story fixed and started us off on the next 10 years, but then when it brought us to the front door, it didn't open the door. The ending was not satisfying in a way that, and it wasn't even like a cliffhanger ending. This isn't a Halo 2 moment. It was a, we ended the game, the story came to an ending that didn't feel conclusive. It wasn't a cliffhanger. It just didn't feel like enough had happened in this particular story to earn its ending, and you're left feeling a little underwhelmed. I remember reading reviews before we played of people saying like the story doesn't stick the landing, and that worried me because I thought that sounds like the story's bad. Luckily, no, the story is good, but they're correct. It truly doesn't stick the landing. When you finish the game, you feel like you didn't get the whole experience. You know there's more coming. And between it having to fix Halo 5 and it having to start a new 10 years but not finish anything, I feel like that does bring down the story a couple points, and for me personally, even makes it not up to the narrative quality of Halo 4, which is, was a really, really good narrative in that game, and I think we were hoping Infinite would be the clear winner of the 343 titles, but I feel like enough mistakes were made there. Now, before I pass it over to Josh, I will say that sounds really negative. Ultimately, this is a good story. This is a good campaign. There's compelling villains. There's fun motivations. There's good side characters in the pilot and the weapon. Things happen in the story that's intriguing, that's mysterious. Ultimately, it was a story that was pretty satisfying to experience and definitely leagues and leagues above 5. And honestly, I would think it's fair for some people to say it's better than some Bungie story titles. But for me, that having to fix the prior game's problems and having to set up for the next 10 years without a proper conclusion, it's just good. It's not great, it's just good. So that's how I feel. Josh, take it over.
I think Halo Infinite story is best when the focus is on Chief and the weapon. I think during those moments that we get to see throughout the campaign, you have a new character mixed with an old one, a familiar one, and you get to see a nice bridging of what's come before and what's to come next. And that's when Halo Infinite works best to me, because it feels like that's when it's its own thing and it's developing its own identity as these characters become closer together and get to know one another more. That's great. I do agree with Bryan. I think that we do run into the issue of there being a lot of residual exposition they have to wrap up from 4 and 5, more 5 respectively, and that does somewhat hinder it. But I feel like it does as best a job as it probably could to still focus on that narrative and conclude it, like acknowledge the elephant in the room, but not fixate on it too much, as it is trying to very much wrap that up, but also do different things. It had a very tough job going into this, and I think for the most part it succeeds. However, in trying to wrap that up, it also does leave you feeling like you're very much playing a middle adventure, a sort of book in between games, if you will. Like Bryan said, it brings you to the door, but then it ends before it opens, and you feel like you're effectively playing you're getting to a point where the story is about to really take off and open up, but it ends. That's not to say it's abrupt. It's not. It just feels like just when it really is getting good and getting ready to take off with its own identity, it's over. And we have that promise of more to come, which is exciting. But ultimately, it does kind of leave you wanting more. But it, again, like Bryan said, it isn't to say it's too bad or it is bad or anything. I think it's good. I don't think it's great, but I do think it's good as well. And the emotions are high. Characters are great. The antagonist is constantly hyping you up throughout, and it's probably the most we've ever gotten with an antagonist to really get to know this person and see them develop, while also having a kind of rogues gallery of henchmen that kind of round that out, which is really fun. It creates moment-to-moment memories, and that I won't forget anytime soon. But effectively, I think it's got a tough job. It succeeds in doing it, but when the focus is really on Chief and or the weapon herself, that's when it's at its best.
Yeah, I think ultimately for me, guys, what it is that the ideas brought to Halo Infinite are so good. Like some of the ideas are 10/10, like the Banished, this sect of Covenant that the Covenant couldn't contain, that they come back and they have this setup on Zeta Halo, and the Infinity's taken out, and you have the Harbinger, and you have these mysteries. All of these ideas for this game are like 10/10 ideas that, if they were on their own, could have made a 10 out of 10 story, but they're hampered by having to bring the baggage of the prior games with them. We had to resolve what happened with Halo 5. We know we're coming off of Halo 4 and 5, where there was the Prometheans, and there was the Didact, and there was evil Cortana, and we have to deal with that and bring all that heavy baggage into these 10/10 ideas. And it just makes me feel like, it just makes me wonder, if we had got Halo Infinite as the proper Halo 4 after Halo 3, if we had just went right from Halo 3 into like Banished conflict, Zeta Halo mysteries, the Harbinger, that would have been such a proper evolution without any of the baggage. It would have been easier to, the story wouldn't have had to pick up the slack from 5 and then also bring us to the doorstep at the end and not give us a conclusive ending and wait for more. We could have just had that work as one cohesive thing, and it would have been really good. So I do think the situation we're in does hamper the overall quality. So it's a really, really good. It's a good time. It's a good campaign. It's a good story, but it's not perfect, and it does have issues. I would even go on to say that it feels. It's easy. It's far easier to understand and play as a newcomer than Halo 5 by far, but Halo 5 felt more like it had a beginning, middle, and end than perhaps Infinite even did.
Yeah, I will say that this story is very safe. It's very back to basics. It's simple to pick up and understand, and it does have exposition that if you don't understand, you have the games to go play through Game Pass and stuff like that. There are audio logs scattered throughout that really do give you a lot of exposition as to characters and potential plot points that may be going on with people that were in Halo 5, which seems to tease more to come with DLC that we may get. But as it stands, this story itself is very, not bare bones, but very simple in trying to conclude the sort of arc that came in 4 and 5 and wrap that up and bring us into a new beginning. It's in some ways a necessary evil to get us to the next part of the journey, but it is one that, while it does have its flaws because of it, it still manages to do it very well.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but feel like the game would have been better if it was just, and I'm not saying I want this, because as a Halo lore fan and as all the Halo fans out there, I know we wouldn't want this, but if this game was just a flat-out reboot, and it was just Chief on Zeta Halo with Cortana taking out the Banished and discovering these mysteries, I feel like it would have been better. I feel like it would have objectively been a better story and experience without all that baggage, but then you have to sacrifice 20 years of storytelling, so it makes sense that they didn't do that. But, I mean, ultimately, a complaint levied against 343 a lot is that they start things and don't finish them with their story arcs and stuff. And I feel like it's really felt here in Halo Infinite, because you have almost 10 years of 343 storytelling that largely a lot of it either doesn't get mentioned or is swept under the rug for Halo Infinite's new path. And it makes you worried that Halo Infinite won't stick to that if something came up the fan base didn't like, because we really, we had the Didact and the Prometheans, and that was like not received well, so it kind of deviated towards, Team Osiris squad mechanics and Cortana, and then that wasn't liked, so now we deviate towards the Banished, and it's like just one too many deviations without finishing what they had set up to get us to this point where where it feels like Halo Infinite just isn't this proper concealed own thing from beginning to end. Maybe once we have, if there is story DLCs coming, if we have all of them and it's completely fleshed out, we might feel differently. But I think right now the verdict on the story is very good, but not great. We enjoyed it.
I do think it is going to take time, because I do think in a lot of ways it's like 4 and 5s being something that they probably, while they like and they are probably proud of, they probably want to move away from and get a fresh start. But they don't want to. They're tired. It's like playing an RPG for 100 hours, and then not playing for a couple years, and then wanting to play it again, but not wanting to deal with the save game and the progress you've already made. And you kind of need to do that, but you also just kind of want to start fresh and kind of get that clean slate. And I think they probably just wanted that, and needed that. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think a clean slate was what they were going for here, and it wasn't a bad decision, it just wasn't the ideal decision, so that's kind of where we're left. But ultimately, I mean, the story's good, guys. I think you're going to be very satisfied if coming off of Halo 5. This is definitely not a Halo 5 experience again. This was a good campaign. Okay, Josh, so we've talked about the sound, we've talked about the art design, the graphics, the gameplay, the story. Ultimately, I think we've been very positive on it. This game has been a joy to experience, a joy to play. The multiplayer is so much fun. It's so addicting to just run in there and just do quick play or ranked, or now they've got a bunch more playlists added and just continue to just roll through with your friends playing these multiplayer matches as the hours pass by. The gameplay is so smooth, the maps are amazing, the playlists are great for what's there. The cosmetics look beautiful. Obviously, there's been issues with the battle pass and progression, which has been talked about and is continuing to be improved and taken care of. The campaign is a very long campaign, because for even if you just do some of the side content, it's very easy to get 15 to 20 hours locked in Halo Infinite, which is a big deal coming off of campaigns as small as ODST or 4, where you were maybe done in 6 hours. So this is a big improvement there. The art style is great, the music, the sound's great. Ultimately, this is an incredible Halo Infinite package. And honestly, I feel like, despite my own personal squabbles or my own personal issues or personal preferences, Halo Infinite definitely has the cred to be seen as the best Halo ever made, which is perhaps the highest praise we can give it. Is that if somebody said, I think this is the best Halo ever made, I'd say you have a point there. I think that the chops are there. I mean, it's a very complete, like, what is there is a very complete product. And going off of that, we'll address the elephant in the room, which is it didn't come with co-op at launch. It didn't come with Forge. There's things like assassinations that are going to be patched in later, and more content coming, improvements and stuff. And while we are disappointed in those things and we would have liked to have them here, the way we look at it when reviewing this game and giving it a score is that we're not going to dock the game for not having co-op or not having Forge. The game doesn't receive less points. We can't judge it for what we don't have, though we can say that maybe if we had those experiences at launch, it could have improved our experiences overall and maybe resulted in a higher score. But we're not going to take it down at all for those missing features. So, I mean, before I pass over to Josh and let him give his final opinions before we give a final score, I just want to say I'm very satisfied with this game. It did everything it needed to do with the Halo franchise in 2021. I love the campaign. I love the multiplayer, the gameplay, the maps, the sound, the art. They pretty much, I would say, for how much of a struggle they had to get to this point and how much they needed to do to bring the series back, you really couldn't have asked for more than what they gave us. This is really kind of the best result considering everything. So I'm extremely satisfied. How about you, Josh?
Me too, buddy. Me too. No, seriously, I'm incredibly pleased that this game turned out as good as it did when it felt like it had everything going against it. It somehow managed to be an incredible game that I'm seeing get Game of the Year from so many different people out there on the interwebs. Places like IGN and stuff like that. I mean, so many people are giving it such high reviews. It's gotta feel good. It's a great time to probably be an employee at 343. And hats off to them for working as hard as they have for so long, having to keep this so secret, and now finally having it out there. I'm so happy for them. I think Infinite, or I should say Halo, is effectively at its best when it's just, the stakes are real, but the characters that inhabit these worlds that we're fighting in don't take it as seriously. And that's what Halo Infinite brings back to the fold. I think it finds that really good magical formula of 30 seconds of fun that make for interesting moments that are always different, even though you're effectively doing the same thing again and again and again and again. But I never feel tired of it because there's so many different ways to approach it. I have so many options with player agency. Killing grunts that scream is hilarious. I never get sick of it. Going to towers where I get to hear grunts go from talking shit to, hey, if you're the Master Chief, please don't do this. Please stop. It's hilarious. Getting in all the different combat scenarios you can, seeing the story grow, the sound design of Zeta Halo, just getting to really take it in if you're listening with headphones is incredibly euphoric. Can't get enough of all that's there, and the Marines banter with you, hearing them get excited to get in a vehicle with you, or when they kill an enemy, or when one of them gets crushed because the pilot dropped a warthog on them.
Let's get you mobile.
That's cool.
Stand by for vehicle drop.
I don't know.
Wow. You just murdered a woman. Holy sh.
It creates for these moments that you see clips of people driving off cliffs even, and Marines saying, you know, we're not going to lose this time, and then bam, exploding because they were killed by the Guardians effectively.
Okay, that was awesome. Woo!
So it's a lot of fun to play. I found myself grinning ear to ear. I found myself getting full of emotions. I found myself even crying at times. It's incredibly special, and it didn't do everything perfect, but it did everything about as good as it could have. And I really couldn't see how they could do it any better, having to be a continuation of what's come before, and also set a new precedent, get a new start. And the multiplayer, like Bryan said, is fresh and it's fun, and I didn't think I could like it better than I loved 5s, but I'm really coming around to it. I'm very addicted, and I can't get enough of it. I can't wait for more because of what's there is already good.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's a remarkable achievement because, you know, speaking objectively, Halo Infinite it can make an argument for it having the best version of every enemy type in the game, from brutes to hunters to jackals to skirmishers. You can make an argument that it has the best versions of those enemies. I think the
brutes in this are the best they've ever been.
Absolutely.
343 got the best brutes.
You can make an argument that it has the best soundtrack. I mean, once again, guys, these aren't necessarily our personal opinions, but I'm just saying that these are arguments that can be made because it's so well done. You could say it has the best art design, best enemy variation, best music, best sound, best gameplay. For being this far along in the franchise and coming off of probably the most despised Halo of them all in Halo 5, 343's managed to bring forth a Halo that's quite possibly the best version Halo's ever been in almost every way. So that's just a huge remarkable achievement. I think for me, the thing that would keep this game from ever reaching the heights of a 10 out of 10 score, we've seen some of those 10 out of 10 scores, and I just don't see any world where this game can receive a 10, because there's just one too many talking points to look at this game and say it can be a perfect 10, you know. And there's no such thing as a perfect game, but I think if we're honest with ourselves, you know, even though we said we're not going to incorporate those into our review specifically, when you think about all the modes and things we had in other Halos that aren't here, that's one talking point. When you think about the progression, you think about the microtransactions, you think about how you unlock cosmetics, you think about the story having to make up for the pitfalls of the prior story, you think about it ending in a way that seems clear, they're going to bring DLC and it's not finished, and other talking points that I'm probably not even thinking of right now. There's just far too many talking points to give this game a 10. So I don't think we see a 10. We do see a very high score for it, but ultimately, guys, it's just a really great game. I would recommend it for any Halo fan or just any shooter fan. This feels like a Doom Eternal or Doom 2016 moment for Halo coming back. It's so great. We're so excited about it. We really enjoy the game. Josh, do you have any final words before we give the score?
I do, man. When I die from a brute, when I die in multiplayer, I hate it, but I love it, and I gotta play it again, baby. And that's what I love about Halo, and Infinite brings it back to me. I'm so happy for this game. I miss playing it right now. I can't wait to play it again. I love getting to explore Zeta Halo. I can't wait to see what the future has in store for Halo itself. It's not a perfect game. It does have its flaws, but damn does it feel good to play. And it's exactly what I wanted it to be, even though I didn't really know what I wanted it to be. I let it be what it was. There was one core thing, which I will not get into, that I wanted so badly in the story that I did not get. And I was disappointed by that. But it doesn't affect what I think of the game overall, as it's not the game's fault. That was my own expectation. But what's there is incredibly fun, incredibly rewarding, replayable, addicting, and at times emotional. It's not perfect. It's got a lot of work that it had to kind of do, playing off a save game and also trying to fresh start. That's a hard balance to make, and the taste is gonna be a little sour at times in certain ways, depending on how you look at it. But what's there is a really good launching point for Halo experience that we've never gotten before, but I'm sure in a couple years' time we'll look back on it and think, wow, that was just the beginning, and what a great ride it's been.
So Josh, I'll pass it over to you, and in true Adam Sessler fashion, you can give us the score from Sacred Icon for Halo Infinite. Josh, what is our score?
8.5 out of 10.
There you have it, guys. We give Halo Infinite an 8.5 out of 10. Boom. We love the game. We recommend the game. It's the best Halo's been in 10 plus years. It's so exciting. We love it. We can't wait to get off of here and go back to play it. 343 did a remarkable job. This was worth the wait. It was worth the hype. It was definitely not a disappointment in any way, and we just can't be thankful enough for the hard work that 343's done.
Thank you,
and we're just enjoying this experience in ways that we never thought we would. We expected to play a good Halo game, but it's introduced so many new things to the franchise.
Didn't expect it to be this good.
It's nailed so many different aspects across all different realms of game development that it's just an exciting time to be a Halo fan, which is something we love to say, but it's really true right now because the future is absolutely bright for Halo. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on this review at YouTube. If you guys could like and subscribe this video and leave a comment below, we would really love it. Guys, thank you so much for showing up to this video, and as always,
keep it sacred.